بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
And we want to begin by saying something that terrorism has no faith. I don't remember when terrorism got baptized or got their yarmulke or became Muslim or took the Shahada. So I really don't like the phrase Christian terrorism or Islamic terrorism, even though we're going to use the terminology. But I do want to preface that saying we as Muslims don't believe terrorism has any particular faith. That being said, we also want to begin by telling you a little bit about the Quran. And if anybody wants a Quran, you can request one. We're more than happy to give you one. And there's a verse in the Quran, and when we look at the English translations, these are the meanings. One of the beautiful things about the Quran, unlike other holy texts from the past, it has been preserved from beginning to end, verse by verse, letter by letter, in the original language that it was revealed. So, as Muslims, we don't have two Qur'ans. So, I've given you a verse here, it's the 5th surah, the 32nd ayah, to the meaning of the translation, that whoever kills an innocent person, it is as if they have killed the entire humanity. And that's what the Qur'an teaches us about preserving innocent life. Now, if people want to misuse religious texts, you can do that with any text. I'm not here to talk about the Bible or the Old Testament or even give lecture about the Quran. My subject is about media, but I'm just beginning with this to kind of clear out your mind before you listen to this talk. So, put your biases away, open your heart, open your mind, and maybe we'll all learn something tonight. Since the attack that happened in Paris and the constant media attention, it got me wondering. I started to think, where is this monster, this horrible terrorist killing machine of an organization I don't know if they're a state or not, come from? What is the timeline? And most of the websites and most of the news articles begin around 2006, October 2006, where this organization took shape or form. But I wasn't very satisfied with that because, how does an organization just come out of nowhere and take over huge pieces of land and then run a country and sell oil and have the police and all this kind of stuff? That usually takes a long time. So I thought, let's take a step back. Maybe there's precedence before 2006 for ISIS. But what I found out, to my surprise, that before the invasion of Iraq, before the United States under George W. Bush invaded a sovereign nation, there was no ISIS. In 2003, when we invaded Iraq, there was no ISIS. But at least we should be comforted knowing that we did invade a sovereign nation due to good reason. Why? There were WMDs, there were weapons of mass destruction. People still remember WMDs, or the memory's been cleared out. So we were told that there were weapons of mass destruction ready to destroy our country, and we had to invade this country to defend America. So then it was worth it. We were also told that Saddam Hussein had links to Osama bin Laden. And Osama bin Laden, so we're told, he attacked us on 9/11. So it makes sense. If somebody is attacking us, then we have the right for revenge. So, these are newspaper articles that we found that 45 minutes from attack, in 45 minutes, Saddam Hussein was going to attack the United States and England and Europe and everybody else. And we were that close. 45 minutes, that's pretty short. Hey, this lecture is probably getting more than 45 minutes. So, that makes sense. And Colin Powell, he had yellow cake. I don't even know what yellow cake is. I thought it was like this thing, kind of drink tea and have cake. But he had yellow cake. So, this is what we believe. This is what we saw in the news. This is what we were told. So, that makes sense. But what's interesting is after the news told us that Saddam Hussein had WMDs 45 minutes from attacking us, and after our president at the time and Rumsfeld, I'm not defense secretary, I don't know who he was, whatever he was, him and Powell and the UN told us that yes, they have weapons of mass destruction, and we have proof, we have pictures, we have aerial pictures, which turned out to be mobile library or something. But anyway, well, after we were told that definitely they had something to do with 9/11. Now, after invading a sovereign nation that had no ISIS, that had no Al-Qaeda, that had no known terrorist organization being harbored or taking over land and attacking other countries inside its borders, Rumsfeld said, you know what? I made a misstatement. I'm sorry, oops, my bad. Claiming that he had weapons of mass destruction was a misstatement. And there are unclassified documents now. You can Google this. This isn't, don't take my word for it. Go do your research. Read up. You know, my message here to you is open your eyes. Don't just sit in front of Fox and let it brainwash you. Go read. There have been documents that have been unclassified that tell us that Rumsfeld and Powell, they had discussions on how to get Americans behind a war against Saddam. And ideas that they brainstormed were to say, well, his moves against the Kurds in the north, question mark. You think that will sell Americans? Or the US discovered Saddam's connection to 9/11 or the Anthrax attack. Wait, what happened with that? No, that didn't pan out either. Question mark? Or dispute over WMD inspections. They were coming up with ideas how to justify a war. So it's not that they didn't know. It's not that they actually believed their false intelligence. They were looking for a reason. And their old buddy, yes, that's Rumsfeld and Saddam, was apparently out of favor. So we wanted to go to war. Now, Dick Cheney, on June 2nd, 2009, you can Google it, you can watch the video, he says, okay, Saddam wasn't behind 9/11. Wait. So, this precedence that was set saying that this man was behind the attack that attacked our country, that every media outlet, and I'm not even just talking about Fox, from CNN, from MSNBC, everybody was carrying this story saying that Saddam had a connection to 9/11. 60-some-odd% of Americans, even up to 2009, believed it. Dick Cheney saying, you know what? Just kidding. He wasn't. And then what happened to the WMDs? Oops, my bad. There were no WMDs. Blair, even in his intelligence panel interview, admitted that he knew 10 days before the Iraq war began that there were no WMDs. But we still had to move forward. You know, I guess once you set up to do something, you got to do it, right? Where did the Taliban come from? We're just not going to talk about Iraq, right? Haqqani is in the picture here, according to news sources. You see him next to this man. Who is that man? Anybody? Yeah. Ronald Reagan. Excellent. Good job. And I'm sure your father's proud of you. Ronald Reagan, the President of the United States. And where might this be? Kabul, Kandahar. Any guesses? The White House. Excellent. Which is in Washington, D.C. last I checked. So, those evil Taliban, women oppressing, school burning terrorists were pretty comfortable. Looks like them, their big turbans and beards and everything were getting funding. And at that time, the Soviet Union called them terrorists. And we called them freedom fighters. Wow. So I guess You got some groups going on there. So what's the big deal? Okay, let's say, somebody can say, so what? Cheney knew that Saddam had no link to 9/11. And Rumsfeld made a misstatement. He didn't really mean to say they had WMDs. He just thought maybe they could have somehow got them. So what? So what? We have 6,717 dead American soldiers in these two wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. 6,717 dead American soldiers because of these wars. That's more than double of the death toll on 9/11. And that's the soldiers. People talk about supporting our troops. Well, what about not getting them killed for lies? What about the media's responsibility for the stories they read without checking? These are wars like Vietnam, like Iraq, that were built on lies. 6,717 dead soldiers. But what else? It's not just that. I want you guys to read this. I want you to see this. Because you, as the people, will be making decisions, will be supporting causes that can either cause more wars or stop this insanity. You can't hide from what your tax dollars are doing. I, as an American citizen, have to be concerned of what 3 months of my year that goes towards taxes, what is it paying for? The number of innocent, and this is from CNN, I'm not making these up, I've given the links here. Whoever wants, I can give them a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Look at the links yourself. According to CNN, the number of innocent civilians killed in ISIS attack in Paris, 128. 128 innocent people killed by the brutal ISIS terrorists, and we want to condemn them. The number of innocent civilians killed in Syria ever since the, shall we say, Western uprising, 340,124. Right? Is that a typo? No, it's not. 340,124 Syrian innocent civilians. Look it up. Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. There's a link. Go look it up yourself. Wow. But by a show of hands, how many people have known about the attacks in Paris? Oh, come on. If you don't raise your hand, you're just being lazy. Do some exercise. Raise your hands. Makaram, you don't know about the attacks. There you go. Okay. How many of you knew about how many people died? About 120 some odd. How many, and be honest. You can be honest, right? How many of you knew that 340,124 innocent civilians, not talking about military deaths, have been killed in Syria? I did. You maybe did. Well, you did. So, I see a big difference. I saw 2 hands in comparison to every hand here. So a question has to be asked. Are 128 French lives more valuable than 340,124 Syrian lives? Or why is it that this isn't on the news 24 hours a day? Why don't we have President Obama lowering flags? Why don't we have solidarity movements for these deaths? The number of innocent civilians killed in Afghanistan as of March 2015, 210,000. 210,000 innocent civilians killed in Afghanistan because of that little misstatement. What was the misstatement? Yeah. There you go. This is the Watson Institute at Brown University. I've given the link. These are not Muslim organizations or some kind of Arab group that put these together. These are universities in the United States and Europe and things that have put these together. Number of innocent civilians killed in Iraq, in the country of Iraq, which apparently had no connection to Saddam, to Osama, had no connection to 9/11, and had no WMDs. Okay, so if you have no connection to the attack that happened on our soil, and you have no weapons of mass destruction ready to destroy the world apparently, why exactly did we invade Iraq? Oh, Saddam was a really bad president. Well, he was. But you have a lot of bad presidents. King Jing-yong is not a really nice guy. I don't really like the Chinese president either. I don't like Putin. He may work out or whatever, I don't like him. Should we invade Russia because we don't like Putin? Should we invade North Korea tomorrow? Should we invade Mexico? A lot of drug stuff going on. While we're at it, why don't we just invade every country that we don't like? Maybe somebody doesn't like Bush. Maybe somebody won't like Obama. Maybe somebody won't like Donald Trump. So, does that mean that other countries have the right to invade the United States if they don't like our president? Or if they feel that, Guantanamo or Abu Ghraib or these kinds of shootings of African Americans by the police are cruelty? So does that mean it's justified to invade a country because you don't like their leader? No. How many people of Iraq, and this is John Hopkins, many of you probably met school guys who want to go there, girls included. John Hopkins, School of Public Health, has said from 2003, when the invasion of Iraq began, to 2011, not up to 2015 even, to 2011, over 1,600,1,027 innocent Iraqi civilians have been killed in Iraq. 500,000 people. And we thought the world was over. We thought mission accomplished. And this is the truth of what happens when we don't check our sources, when we blindly trust politicians and the media. There is a movement to fabricate a boogeyman, and that's not me. It's cool, but I'm not that much. So, there is a movement to make a boogeyman, because to control masses, you always have to have them scared. First, it's the communist boogeyman. Or maybe before that, the Japanese boogeyman, or the German boogeyman, or the African American boogeyman, or maybe the illegal immigrant boogeyman. And nowadays, apparently, it's a Muslim's turn. So there's the Muslim boogeyman. Be scared. Muslims are coming. Muslims, their refugees are going to do this and that. So let's look at it from not the box. Oh, sorry. Is that the line? Oh, I got the wrong one. From box, but statistics. Let's talk about Europe. And you can find this from Europol. Europol, anybody know Europol? It is the law enforcement agency of the European Union. You can Google it, look it up. I didn't make these charts. I'm not that good at it. I found these, and you can find them as well. According to Europol, 96% of the terror attacks in Europe were perpetrated by separatist groups, not Muslims. And this is between 2006 and 2008. 96%. How many can name a single attack in a single European city that has happened by European separatists who are trying to break away from whatever France or Spain? How many can name that? Not a single person. Even though 96%, according to the European Union, of the terrorist attacks in Europe were carried out by such people, but we can't name one. This is a more recent poll, and you will find this from Europol. I've given the link, europol.europa.eu, latest publication 37. Take the link, write it down. There's 3 boards, and put it in your browser, and look it up. The religiously motivated terror attacks by any religion in the last 5 years are less than 2% of terrorist attacks in the EU. And it's rather recent, 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010. You see that little sliver of blue? Those are religiously motivated attacks. And you see this huge orange, reddish bar? That is the non-religious terrorist attacks in the EU, according to the European Union's police force. In 2013, there were 152 terror attacks in Europe. Only 2 of them were religiously motivated, while 84 were perpetrated upon ethno-nationalism or separatist beliefs. In France, in 2013, I'm not talking about like 1980 or something. In France, there is a group called FLNC, and at the same time, they shot rockets at police stations in 2 French cities. Shot rockets inside of France in 2013. Who knew about it? There's an organization shooting rockets, not AK-47s or handguns or BB guns, rockets at police stations at the same time in a coordinated terrorist attack, and not a single one of you knew about it. How many of you were alive in 2013? Some of you weren't. You may look young, but you don't think you're that young. So we were all alive during that time, but we didn't hear about this because the media didn't feel like it was that important to report about people shooting rockets at police stations in Europe, because that happens all the time, right? In Greece, in Italy, in all these countries, you had groups attacking government facilities, bombing journalists, and I don't think any of us have heard of any of these. Now, ask yourself a question. Ask yourself an honest question. The first thing I ask you, just be honest with yourself. I'm not even asking for the answer. If these rocket attacks weren't carried out by Caucasian, French separatists, but were carried out by Arab men who took rocket launchers and shot at police stations in a coordinated attack in France, how many of you think we might have heard about this? You don't even need to raise your hand. Answer the question for yourself. Right? So now, I'm not trying to come up with some kind of conspiracy theory. I'm putting facts out there. You don't believe me? Go Google it. Go look it up. Go look at the newspaper articles. Go read the links that I'm giving you. And you will find out that this isn't about conspiracies. This is about reality. This is a graph given by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, better known as the FBI. How many of you have heard of the FBI? Just want to make sure you guys are awake. I see some hands not going up. Never heard of the FBI? Here, come on, raise your hand. So, the FBI, on their website, and here's the link, you can look it up, they put together a graph and statistics about terrorist attacks in the United States between 2002 and 2005. And you will find different groups and the percentage of terrorist attacks according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not according to my definition, and how many percent were carried out by what type of a terrorist organization. Now, until you saw this, and until you look up this link, I'm sure you thought that Islamic, quote-unquote, extremism would have been responsible for a huge chunk. Only 6%. Can you guys tell me anything about these other attacks? How many of us even know that there are Jewish extremists, according to the FBI, that have carried out more terrorist attacks in the United States between 2002 and 2005 than Muslim extremists? We don't hear about it. I wonder why. And you could say, okay, 2005 was a long time ago, blah, blah, blah. This is the New York Times. Again, I'm not quoting Al Jazeera here, I'm not coming from Saudi Arabian news or something. This is according to the New York Times. Between 2002 and 2015, the current year that we're in, the number of attacks by anti-government, racists, and other non-jihadist extremists have been clearly have killed twice as many people as those by Islamic jihadists. And there are some shootings that have been given some names. You can go look up the stats. You can look up this article in New York Times and read that what we have been fed 24 hours a day on Fox is in fact a lie. Because these are numbers. You know, you could say, okay, well maybe there were a lot of attacks by other people, but they didn't kill that many people. No! This is looking at how many casualties were carried out in these attacks. And this is by the New York Times. In 2014, a study by the University of Northern Carolina, not by the University of Jeddah or Baghdad or Kuwait or something, by the University of Northern Carolina, found that since the 9/11 attacks, Muslim-linked terrorism has claimed the lives of 37 Americans. How many? 37 Americans. And in that same time period, more than 190,000 Americans were murdered. Over 1,083 were killed by police officers. In 2014, 1,083 people killed in a year by police officers? Wow. In fact, in 2013, before the study was completed, it was actually more likely that Americans would be killed by a toddler, by a child, by a baby, than a terrorist. A child playing with guns was responsible in 2013, not 14, for more deaths than what they called as Muslim extremism. Duke University, here's the site.duke.edu, look it up. If we talk about the bigger picture, you may say, okay, but you are taking, little points of data from time, but overall, in the bigger picture, Muslims have been responsible for way more deaths. So if we look at the bigger picture, let's take the 20th century and deaths in war and political violence by religion. Out of this whole pie, it's that little sliver, this is what was killed by Muslims. And this big purplish thing, this is by Christians and people of European heritage. Anybody ever heard of a guy named Hitler? Oh yeah, you heard of Hitler, come on man. Yeah, right? What was his symbol for his military? Does anybody remember? What? The Iron Cross. Anybody ever heard of a guy named Stalin? That's a rhetorical question. So, what is terrorism? So let's talk about terrorism. What is terrorism? Terrorism, as defined, is the use of violent acts to frighten the people in an area as a way of trying to achieve a political goal. This is the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of terrorism. So if you talk about that, then I want to ask a question. Where did the use for terrorism, according to this definition, begin to use bombings, shootings, killing for a political cause? The first known use of such bombings for a political cause was the bombing of the King David Hotel by Zionist Jewish terrorists trying to establish what later became the State of Israel. July 22nd, 1946. Look it up. Look it up. This is the birth of modern use of weapons for political cause in what we consider terrorism. Was it a Muslim? Are there other Jewish individuals who have engaged in terrorism? Yes. Coco Goldstein, an American-born Israeli physician, he walked into a mosque while people were praying, and he gunned down 30 innocent men and children and wounded 125 others. Look him up. Google him. There's his name. Per the 2013, I'm not even going back too far, 2013, pretty recent, State Department, United States, U.S. State Department, the country we're in, according to them, they reported on terrorism, they had a report on terrorism, there were 399 acts of terror committed by Israeli settlers. These Jewish terrorists attacked 93 Palestinian civilians and attacked scores of mosques and Christian churches. How many of you know a single location that this happened in 2013? Not a single one. There were, according to our State Department, 399 acts of these, not just against Muslims, but against Christians in Palestinian territories by Israeli terrorists. We didn't hear about it. I don't remember the Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or anybody. The only person that sometimes men talk about is the Daily Show. Let's talk about the USS Liberty. Who knows about the USS Liberty already? Not a single person. Oh, one person. You were the other presentation. Go and Google this. The Uss Liberty Attack in 1967, where an Israeli fighter jet, after having warned that this is an American defense ship, attacked and sunk and killing 34 crew members, American soldiers, Navy sailors, and wounding another 171. But this has been wiped from our memories. This has been wiped from our history books. Nobody here had heard about this. Imagine if tomorrow Saudi Arabia attacked an American naval ship and killed 34 crew members and injured 170. We would be like attacking Saudi the day before it. Saddam didn't attack any American ships. But look at this. Look at the double standard of what gets reported. Because we talk about Christian terrorism. President Obama, he made an interesting statement, and I quote it here. He says, "Lest we get on our high horses and think this is unique to some other place. Remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, Christians committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. Slavery and the Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ." Anybody know about the Spanish Inquisition? One guy in the front, I think you know that. You don't know about the Spanish Inquisition? Go home, Google it. Look up what happened in the Spanish Inquisition and how many people were massacred, what kind of genocide was done, and in the name of which religion was it done in. Anybody heard of the KKK? All right, come on. I know you heard of the KKK, right? Anybody know? You heard of the KKK? No, you. Great question. You heard of them? I can see your hands, so I'm just making sure you're awake, man. I'm trying to sleep in my talk. All right, you heard of the KKK, right? What do they burn on your front lawn? A crescent? A big Al-Qaeda flag? What do they burn? A cross. Interesting. Timothy McVeigh? Anybody heard of him? Right. Are we forgetting these things? When we talk about Islamic terrorism, why don't we call this Christian terrorism? Why don't we talk about things in a manner that are the same? The Olympic Park bomber, the Unabomber. Anybody heard of Wade Page? Anybody? This proud white supremacist. You see that's a cross, by the way. 40-year-old white supremacist, veteran of the U.S. Army, fatally shot 6 people and wounded 4 others at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, thinking they were Muslims. Apparently, racist, crazy guys aren't too smart. So he actually walked into a Sikh temple and gunned them down. But nobody even knows his name anymore. If his name was Muhammad al-Arabi, al-Muslim, everybody was like Usama and this. How about this guy? Anybody know Andres? You know him? Excellent. This man, alright, somebody else in the back. Excellent. He walked into a youth camp and massacred, using his high-powered weaponry, 69 children. And then he also blew up a detonated bomb that he had planted in front of a government building and wrote a 1,500-page manifesto declaring a crusade against the Muslim invasion of Europe. And what he felt was the population growth of Muslims. So, let's take this back. He was a member of the Christian Church of Norway. He was a member of a Christian church. He wanted to declare a crusade. He placed a huge cross on the top of his manifesto and laden it with hate speech against Muslims and talking about preserving the Christian identity and fighting the infidel Muslims invading Europe. 1,500 pages, and made a video about it and posted on YouTube about his Christian crusade against the Muslims of Europe, massacred children, blew up bombs in front of government buildings. How many of you heard of him to be referred to on Fox News as a Christian terrorist? Not a single one of you, because they wouldn't use that term. If this was a Muslim man, whether he prayed once in his life or not, whether he believed anything or not, but if his name just happened to be Muhammad or Ahmad or Abdullah or something like that, and if he just happened to be of Arabic or South Asian descent, he wouldn't really have to go that far. He would just have to show up, and it would be Islamic, jihadist, terrorist, Salafist, Wahhabist, and this is, and that is, are declaring jihad on McDonald's or whatever else, they may be even trying to get a burger from it. This is a double standard. This isn't a conspiracy. Look at the facts. Hindu terrorism. Has anybody heard of Hindu terrorism? How come you have not. In 2002, 2,000 Muslims were murdered by Hindu terrorists. Countless women, children burned alive. And the chief minister, Mr. Modi, who was recently welcomed by President Obama, was at that time put on a ban from coming to the US because he was held responsible for that violence where police officers of Hindu descent were giving out lists of Muslim-owned properties for those rioters to attack. I bet you half of you, or more than half of you, have never even heard of this. 128 people died in Paris. And every news channel, and every one of us knows about it. 2,000 people are murdered by a mob of Hindu extremists from BJP, from RSS, known terrorist organization, and nobody's heard about it. What about Buddhist terrorism? That couldn't be, right? Buddhism, meditation, peace, they don't even eat meat. There have been massacres committed by Buddhist monks in Burma, which is called Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, where houses were burned, people were burned alive by Buddhist monks, but you have never heard Fox News come out and say Buddhist terrorism, or a Buddhist terrorist, or a Buddhist attack on a terrorist platform. Why? It's not that it's not happening. Go look up the massacre by Buddhist monks. There's videos you can watch of monks in their robes with guns and knives and swords massacring women and children in Burma. But you don't hear about it. What does the Quran tell us? What does the Quran teach us? Those of you who have been duped by right-wing extremists or Fox, I want to introduce the Quran to you. The Quran doesn't tell people to kill non-Muslims or to kill innocent people. Rather, the Quran teaches us that killing anybody unjustly will be like killing all of mankind. The Quran tells us that people incline towards peace. You should incline towards peace with them. You should be at peace with them. Now, can you take a verse of the Quran that may be related to a time of war, or maybe related to a circumstance, and take it out of context? Of course you can. And I know two major organizations or groups of people that do that. One is ISIS. They want to tell us that the Quran tells us to fight every infidel in the West. And the other are the right-wing extremists like the Tea Party and Galen and those people that also want to tell us the same thing. So apparently they exchange notes somewhere. And you have the middle between these extremes who are saying, wait, take a step back. Let's read the context. Let's read what the verse is really about. Because I tell you, if you want to misquote scripture, we could do it all day with any religion you like. Oh, you don't believe me? I have a Bible. I read the Bible. And now, I know some people make it like, well, the Old Testament had a lot of killing and massacring, but not the New Testament. This is from Matthew 10, verse 34, 35. You can get a Bible at home, read it yourself. Where Jesus says, don't think that I came to bring peace on earth. Don't think that. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. This is according to the Bible. I'm not saying this is Jesus' word. According to the Bible, this is what Jesus was sent for. Not to bring peace, but to bring a sword. Look it up. You guys have Google? Matthew 10, 34, 35. Just read it from the book. I didn't print it. Could I misuse that to justify killing? Yes. Has it been done? Yes. Google how many times Hitler quoted the Bible in his speeches, and you'll find out that he very often did. If you ever happen to watch KKK videos of their propaganda, they use the Bible. They have churches. They have crosses. So if you want to misuse religious texts for horrific acts of violence, you can do that with any religion. Islam is not immune to that. Misuse of Islamic texts goes on all the time. Neither is Christianity, neither is Buddhism, neither is Hinduism, neither is Judaism, neither is any other religion in the world. But we as thinking people, we as those that want to live in a peaceful society, we have to get away from that. We have to say, you know what? We're done with trying to villainize other people, because if we don't, history tells us. And I want to ask you a question. Did you ever wonder, because I know I did, that how could an entire nation of people like Germany sit and watch the massacre of a minority, the killing of a minority, like in the Holocaust? And how could they just sit back and not stop their government? How could they not speak their mind? How could the Germans let this happen? How could that be? How could it be that in our country, the one that we are standing in the United States, we took Japanese Americans who were loyal to the US, that had no inclination towards supporting Japan over the US, and put them in camps and tortured them and put up signs like this, Japs keep moving. Imagine how racist, how politically incorrect that would be. But how can it be that we were at a time where children and women and innocent men were put in concentration camps in our country? How could it happen? I'll tell you how. Through villainization, through demonization of an entire people. Through media, through cartoons, through TV. You see this cartoon here? Horrible, honorable fifth column showing, Japanese Americans from California getting TNT to attack America. You know who made this drawing? Anybody other than these? Yes. Dr. Seuss. Apparently, green eggs and ham is the only thing they were taking. You see this? Am I not a man and a brother? You see this? You see this? Look at this. This is Nazi media propaganda, showing a Jewish woman stabbing a German soldier in the back, trying to say as if those Jews living in Germany are secret cells that are going to attack Germans. You see this? On your right, this is somebody who was marked during the concentration camps in Germany. And on your left, something a little more recent. You see this? Where do you think this is going on? And whose tax dollars are paying for this? If you look at the civil rights movement and struggle, and think that if you were alive in that time, you would have been with Martin Luther King, you would have been marching, you would have been standing up. Well, you have a civil rights issue going on right now. When you have politicians saying we shouldn't have mosques in America, we shouldn't allow Muslims in America, Muslims don't have the right to live in America, no matter how law-abiding they may be, no matter how patriotic they may be, they don't have a right to live here. How come you aren't standing up? This is something you have to ask yourself, because if you don't, history repeats itself. History, this is Germany, and this is Germany today. This is Germany, and this is, I think, the Germany today, yeah. German flag. It may be that the racism, the demonization is against a different group of people. Before it was the Jews, now it's the Muslims. But it's the history repeating itself. And if you, the thinking, open-minded, educated class of Americans don't take a stand now, then what happened later in Germany could happen in this country. You see, these aren't things that went away. Racism didn't go away. Prejudice, fear-mongering, it didn't go away. And it never does. If Muslims are being attacked today, somebody else maybe tomorrow. Maybe Mexican Americans, maybe Japanese Americans. And that's why we all have to stand together to stop this type of a fury that doesn't see reason, doesn't see statistics, doesn't see logic. It is fueled by Fox News and right-wing radio shows and people who are trying to make money off of these kinds of horrible events. Because the same propaganda that we found there, we find now. The same kinds of words that were used against Jews in Germany are being used against Muslims in America. The same kinds of horrible attacks, whether by dogs or guns, are being carried out by Israeli Jews in Palestine that were carried out against them by the Germans in Germany. So what's the solution? What is the solution? I hate to be one of those people that points out problems without giving you a solution, because many of you may be like, okay, if there's a problem, what's the solution? The first thing, dialogue. Talk to a Muslim. Education, learning, clearing up misconceptions, building bridges, standing together for a peaceful tomorrow. If you don't know a Muslim, get to know a Muslim. Come by the mosque. We have a mosque on Saranac on the 70th, on Thursday nights. We have dinner free of charge. Come by. Break some bread. Eat some food. We're open. We don't have any secret room. We don't have any hidden dungeons or anything. Come on by. Check it out for yourself. We are opening up invitation to you as non-Muslims that come. People tell us, you don't condemn this, you don't condemn that. Let us speak. Nobody invited me to come on Fox. I'll go. This is going to be recorded in case Roger Hedgecock was there. Roger Hedgecock, thank you. Roger Hedgecock or Rush Limbaugh or anybody sees this somewhere, I'm ready. I'll be on your talk show, radio. I can condemn whatever I need to condemn openly. But if you don't give us the mic, if you don't give us the ability to speak, if you don't even speak to a Muslim, then how are you going to tell us that you guys aren't doing this and you guys aren't doing that? So open up those lines of communication. Get a Quran. Get a book about Islam. Read it. Turn off your TV and read. And this is going to be a solution for the long term. But I'm going to give you a small intro about Islam as a Muslim. If you want to learn about martial arts, go to somebody who's an expert and learn from them. If you want to learn about Greek theology, go to Greece, talk to some Greek people. Right? If you want to learn about Islam, it's not the best source. You know, if you're going to speak about Islam, you should at least know a little bit about Islam. And if you don't know anything about Islam, and suddenly after 9/11 you became some kind of expert overnight, I don't know how, don't take your knowledge from them. Come to a Muslim. We'll tell you, sit down with the Quran, ask me about any verse you like. I am more than open to discuss it. What is Islam? Islam comes from the word salama. Aslama comes from the original three-letter word of salama, which means peace. Aslama is to submit and to gain that inner and outer peace through submitting your will to your Creator. The prayer, the verses that our brother began the lecture with, Allah calls the people to the ways of peace, to the ways of guidance. The Quran is calling you towards peace. That's the root of the word, if we look at the original three-letter root. And what is a Muslim? A Muslim is the one who submits himself, who gains that inner peace and outer peace through this submission and this obedience to their Creator. We are not Islamic, we are Muslims. Alright? And the religion is not a Muslims, the religion is called Islam. So, if you call me, are you Islamic? That's as racist as me asking somebody from Mexico, are you Spanish? And if you tell me, is your Muslimic or whatever your religion name may be, that's like me telling somebody from Mexico, do you speak Mexican? The people are called Mexican, the language is called Spanish. The people are called Muslims, and the religion is called Islam. Islam is not named after anybody. Like we see Christianity. Where do you think that word comes from, Christianity? Any guesses? What? Greek? Yeah, but there's like a word, Christianity, Christian, Christ. So, according to the word, before Jesus Christ, there was no Christianity, right? Because named after that. Judaism. Any guesses? Judah. Right? So before Judah, no Judaism. Now, Confucianism. Before Confucius, no Confucianism. Islam is not tied. We're not Muhammadan. It's not called the Muhammadan religion. It's called Islam. Because this is the same religion that Adam and Noah and Moses and Abraham and Jesus and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them, were upon. That's the same religion. We believe the same thing Abraham believed. We believe the same thing Moses believed. This is the religion that we follow. A Muslim is the one who submits, who accepts this religion, is called a Muslim. And I want to clarify this. We as Muslims believe that Jesus, Moses, Abraham were all Muslims. And that's what the Quran tells us. That Jesus said, as mentioned in the Quran, we are the helpers of Allah. We believe in Allah and we will witness that we are Muslims. And Abraham, he is the one who named the nation Muslims. So we believe in all of those prophets. We respect the Prophet Jesus. Even if you guys see people trying to upset a community by making cartoons and insulting, you'll never see a Muslim making a cartoon of Jesus or Moses or Abraham or insult them in any manner. Because our Quran teaches us to respect all of those prophets. The concept of God in Islam. And this is just the intro. I hope that this will spark interest and you will then read further yourself. The concept of God in Islam is a very simple concept. We believe in one God. Truly one God. Not that, he's 3, but he's 1, or he's 2, and he's 6, and he's 12, and he's divided when he multiplies. No. Just one creator that created man, that created woman, that created animals, that created universes, that created worlds, that created jinn and other creations that we may not even see, that created all that. One creator. He's not a man, he's not a woman, he's not born out of somebody, he's not a father, he's not an uncle, not a roommate, doesn't have to share rhymes, any of that. This is the basic, beautiful concept. And the word Allah, when I was young, I had a book in school, it said, Allah, the Muslim God. And as if we have like a pattern or a trademark on this. The word Allah means Al-Ilah, the single God. Ilah means God. But when you have a single, when you say the, like for example, if I said, go to a university, you could go to any university. But if I said, you gotta go to the university. Now, you could be like a man, or you're like, the man. So, then you're talking about a single one, the one that's the complete, the only one that can be called that. That way we say, the only Allah, Allah. And you will find this in the earlier books, in Hebrew, Ilah, in the Bible. And I've given the references. Those of you who are good with the Bible, look up the references and look up the Arabic Bible, look up the Aramaic Bible. How many of you have ever even seen a Bible in Aramaic? Raise your hands. Wow. Nobody? How many of you, we're not going to kill you or anything, don't worry. How many of you are somewhere around the Christian faith, whether you are Catholic or Protestant or whatever? Don't be scared, sorry. All of you guys are following in faith, and you've never even seen your holy book in the language that Jesus spoke. How many of you are Muslim here? I'm not going to kill you either, don't worry. How many of you Muslims have seen a Quran in Arabic? Well, oh. You see, the Quran, this is something beautiful. It is preserved in the original language, beginning to end. Unlike King James or anybody else, you go to a Barnes and Noble and you ask for a Bible, and they tell you which one. Catholic Bible has different amount of chapters, has more chapters than a Protestant Bible. And Muslims, we don't have that. We have one Quran. Every Muslim has one Quran. 30 juz, 114 surah, same Quran. We believe as Muslims that we have a creator. And I want to ask those of us who are not Muslims here today, what do you guys think of these concepts? I'm open now. We can take some, feedback. Think about this. How many atheists do we have in the house? It's not going to kill you either. Relax. Okay. No, we have one. Religion's making a comeback. So think about this. If I told you that nobody built this auditorium, seriously, right? Nobody built it. There was no engineer, no permitting process, no architects, no labor from across the border. Nobody built this auditorium. Over billions of years, these lights, these 3 projectors, these seats, these tables, this computer thingy, this presentation thingy, all of it, over 100 billion trillion years, grains of sand came together and made this auditorium the way it is. Exactly. Not the exit sign, nobody touched it, just perfect, nice auditorium was built by itself. Evolution. First it was a rock, then it became wood, and then that wood straightened itself, and then put nails into itself. And over billions of years, that wood spun out plastic chairs, metal, and railings. And over another billion years, that would change itself, without anybody touching it, into these monitors, and this phone, and this table. How many of you would believe it? Nobody. Is this human body that you are all walking around in, unless you're zombies, that you're walking around in, is more complex, is more detailed, it is a greater achievement than this auditorium. Your eyes, your liver, your kidney, your heart, your mind, your ears, your eyes, all of these things are more complicated than this auditorium. So how are you going to tell me that this just formed itself out of nowhere? Just kind of developed. First it was fish, and then became a monkey, and then became a human. But you didn't believe me if I told you a rock became this auditorium. So think about these things. We as Muslims believe that there was a creator. And that creator created us with purpose, with design. And we humans are in this world for a purpose. The Quran are the words of Allah. Think about it. How many of you have ever bought a piece of electric equipment? Alright, come on. You never bought electric equipment? Come on, raise your hand. Now you have. When you buy a complicated piece of equipment, what does it come with? A manual. Excellent. It comes with a manual. Because you may not realize how to correctly operate that piece of machine. So the creator, the manufacturer, they give you a manual. We believe that God didn't just create us and put us on earth and just said, do whatever you like. He sent manuals. First, the Old Testament, the Torah, the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him. Then, the Zabur, or the Psalms of David, to David, Dawood, peace be upon him. Then, the Injil, or the Bible, to the Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him. And finally, the Quran, to the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon all of them. And these are manuals for us to know how to live our life. And we believe that the best documented and preserved of them is the Quran. And we can prove that. We're not just going to throw blind faith, you go to church, just believe. No. Let's look at it critically. Let's do an experiment. Brother Abdullah, can you recite the second verse of Surah Al-Fatiha for us? Excellent. Brother Mukarram, can you recite the third verse of Surah Al-Fatiha for us? Excellent. You see this? Muslims have memorized the Quran. This brother Abu Bakr sitting here, he has memorized the entire Quran. The entire Quran from front to back, cover to cover, letter by letter. You can ask him, and we'll play with him later on, any verse from any chapter in the Quran. Imagine that. Can those of you who are Christian, by raising your hand, tell me, how many Christians do you know that have memorized the entire Bible? How many? 2? Old Testament and New Testament, or just one? Word by word? Verse by verse? Excellent. How many do you know? 2. In Aramaic? In what? In what language? In English. That's interesting, because the Bible wasn't revealed in English. So to memorize the Bible, word by word, in English, well, you don't really preserve it because you're looking at a translation. Most likely King James, right? Who was King James? Don't know. Google it. Look up King James, the one who translated, revised, edited, preserved the Bible that you're reading. King James was called the Queen of England. I wonder why. Look it up. Now, before we open up the question that, I want to put forth an invitation. Everybody here. You know, we're not here to convert or force. We're here to present. I want to present to you what Islam is. Islam is a belief in one creator. Islam is a belief in the prophets that came. Islam is a belief that our creator tells us that we will be judged for our deeds. That we will be judged, so we have to be the best. Our creator tells us, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. That we have created death and life, this whole system, to see which one of you puts forth the best of deeds. So we strive to be the best of people, to do the best of things, because that's why we believe we're here. To recognize our Lord, to worship, to be good people. And that's the invitation I want to put out.